All right, guys. Episode 2. We've made it. We're we made it when we did episode 2.
Yeah.
We wanted to start off by saying a massive thank you. Like we cannot. We're both our minds have been blown. We were talking the other day, just like we if you've listened to episode 1 without checking out the socials, we've now created an Instagram account. Just thought that'd make it easier for you guys to message in and all that sort of stuff with questions or feedback. I said to Brad the other day, I was like, I'll just chuck up a questions box. We might get one question if we're lucky, and blown away by the amount we got. Obviously we're not superstars yet, but it was just we haven't even, at the time of recording this episode 2, we haven't even released our first episode yet, and we're just absolutely blown away. So I'm sure you've got the same thing, Brad.
100%. Yeah, we were, mate. We sort of had a bit of a giggle that day, didn't we? We were just, you hit me up and said, like, mate, do you want to jump on that social and just do a question box? And I said, yeah, why not? And then it was like within 20 minutes, we'd had sort of like 3 quick questions. It was like, and I sent you a message and said, bud, we're flooded. We're on. We're doing it. So, yeah, it was a laugh. Like, we were just like, yeah, it was just, it was quite cool just to think that, people are keen, and their questions, and they will come out within this episode. Their questions were like bang-on questions that we actually talk about on a regular basis, and I know around campfires all around Australia and potentially the world, mate, the same sort of questions get brought up. It's a topic of so many conversations. So, that feedback, and we've had quite a few questions since, and even I know we spoke about it too, mate. We've had quite a few people private messages, because not everyone likes to have their name and their face and stuff on socials, but just, personal messages and that saying, good on you, lads, like looking forward to it, keen as to get involved. I know my family's done the same thing, like, if anyone can do a potty, it'd be you two, like, love a yarn. So, yeah, get on it, And, I had my oldest daughter even just send me one of the questions, mate, and but even send me a private message and, I'm so proud of you, Dad, I know you love this sort of stuff, and yeah, I'm so proud that you're having a go. So, not to sound sort of all mushy in that, but it was pretty cool, mate, like.
Oh, yeah, it was definitely...
it was overwhelming.
Not expected. Like, we thought we'd have a few people, but, we'll just see where it takes us, and, who knows. Like we said, we were dreaming the other day, like, we could be sitting up north with some mics, sitting around a fire and recording a potty. It'd be ideal. Just sort of run through a few other things. So, yeah, Instagram's live. Send us in your questions or even feedback or even a subject we talk about. You might want to comment on that, and we can talk about the comment on the next 100%. Episode or a few episodes. And also, we're going to give it a crack. Probably won't be this episode, but we've got sent an audio question, audio recording, so we'll actually play that live on the podcast. So if you prefer that, you want your voice on there and say who you are, that is more than welcome. Just message us and let us know. And there's going to be a delay with some of your questions, so we're sort of doing it in order as we get them. But we're sort of looking at a podcast a fortnight. Jesus, this is going well. Can't talk today. Podcast a fortnight. But let us know if you prefer less, more. Obviously, our work life, we both work away and work away from home and all this sort of stuff. So it does. There's only so much we can do with that. But yeah, so it could be, we might only do 2 or 3 questions an episode. So if you've, sent in a question a bit later, then it could be potentially a month away before you get answered. But don't go off at us because we've ignored you. It is coming. And from this episode, this is episode 2. So episode 1, we just did audio only, and then we're like, stuff it, we'll create the Instagram account, and episode 2 is video as well. So if you're listening to this on audio, you can, if you prefer video, you can go across to YouTube, and we haven't actually created the account yet, but we'll be the Off-Road Yarnsman podcast. That's pretty much all of our little introduction. I don't know if you want to add any more to that.
Just let us know. As once you've obviously listened to the first one, episode 1, please just let us know, like, would you rather a visual? Because, I'd say probably 80% of people just do audio ones. Not everyone does visual ones. But the reality is some people might want to see our ugly mugs and they might put some stuff into context. But we're going to do both anyway. So, let us know what you prefer and just, give us that feedback. Feedback's everything. So if you don't like something we're doing, please give us the negative feedback too. It's only going to make us grow. We don't want flogs on there just telling us we're Muppets. If you think we're Muppets, just go to the next channel. In all seriousness, just give us the negative feedback that something that you want us to do that we're not doing or whatever. But feedback's everything.
Yeah.
And welcome.
Yeah, we're pumped. And we want this to be a bit of a people's podcast, so we want to be. I don't know. I feel like so we sort of want to. It's us yarning, but we'd really love to get you involved in all the questions and topics and all that sort of stuff. So I suppose we want to go through the questions first. So we'll do a couple of questions so we don't run out of time and have to cut the question off or something.
100%.
100%,
mate.
Brad's mainly the big dog on Instagram, so he's got all the questions written down. So what was our first one from who?
Righto, mate. So our first question we got sent in was from Evan, old Luxie on Insta. I've had some really good yarns with Evan, great guy, and I know you have too, mate. Absolute legend. And Evan sent in the first question being camp etiquette. Let's talk about camp etiquette. And I think everyone's got an opinion on camp etiquette. And I think this can be there can be a wide scope of question on whether it just means simply how do you leave it? If you find a campsite like this, how do you leave it? Do you come and camp right next door to someone, or do you just leave people alone? Or turning stereos down in the middle of the night and all that sort of stuff. I think it's quite a broad range of question. So, do you want to start off, mate, on what's camp etiquette to you, and what's a couple of the top topics or top rules that you stick by when you're out camping with the misso or your mates, or just even doing a bit of solo stuff or whatever? What's your go-to expectations around camp etiquette?
Yeah, did you ever see that I think it was a BCF ad? As soon as I seen this question, where the guys 100%. Play the music really loud so they don't camp next time. I don't know why. But they're playing the rap. But like you said, it is such a broad question. And I think I talked a bit about it on episode 1. Is I personally don't like camping near people. Nothing against people, but I just it's camping. You want to be out there by yourselves and enjoy it, and just the bush or beach or whatever, wherever you are. I think it's just generally having obviously you get some Karens or whatever that will make the shits no matter what you do. But I think it's just having a general respect for people, and it goes both ways. So you might be playing music, within a reasonable time you turn it off. Yes, you are camping, you're not at a house, you turn it off. And then it goes the other way. If your neighbours are playing music, then have some respect. They're camping, they're enjoying their life. Don't be like, it's 7 o'clock, boys, you should be parking this up. I don't know where the set time is or whatever, but it goes both ways. And so in that sort of style, I think, obviously with the leaving a camp, how you found it, or if better, you should be taking more rubbish away. That's a massive part. Rubbish is a big thing. It'd be a good topic to bring up later as well on another potty or something.
Yeah, definitely. 100%.
But I guess the question's more brought around or based around people not pissing other people off, I'm assuming. Even a big one that I've found when I've been on beaches as well, down say Ugarup down south here, there's a lot of times you actually camp on the beach, and normally you're camped back a bit. It's quite a wide beach, but you get some people that just come flogging past, and there's nothing wrong with putting a bit of boot in it on the beach and cruising along, but there's so many. A lot of the camps have kids, and it doesn't not much of a hindrance to your trip if you just have to drop a couple of gears, cruise past in first or second, whatever. cruise past, give them a wave, and
Yeah.
put your boot into it again. I think that's another big one that I have found that can piss or has pissed me off. You're like bloody idiots.
Definitely.
I know. Like I said, it's just having
Definitely.
that general respect for people with both ways of, you might do something that pisses someone else off, having that respect for that, and then putting up with other people that might not be your thing. But I don't know. What have you got to add on that?
Yeah.
Might be a bit too general.
Oh, look, I've got a few things. There's a few things I could bring up, and I'd love for people's feedback, even just on my reply to this. Obviously, I know the concept of people camping right beside you, and again, Evan hasn't stipulated exactly what he's talking about, so we're just going to make the assumption that all this can be covered in that one topic. But if it's a tight area, mate, you've just got to camp beside people. It is what it is. But if you've got a 20-acre block and people, and I know this has been covered in plenty of other podcasts or conversations around campfires, but if there's a 20-acre block and we can all get to the water, if you camped on water, if you can, views or whatever, don't go and camp next to the. Just I don't understand the whole. I've heard the answer of like safety in numbers. People want to camp, but I mean, what was your plan B if you went to a camp spot and there was no one there? Would you just drive out of there, or do you camp on your own? Like it, don't come and camp beside people. I'm all for, like, again, I think I said, in the first point, man, I'm not about not talking to people. I love people. I love yarn, clearly, but I just think sometimes it's nice. 9 times out of 10, you go camping. I think 10 times out of 10, you go camping to get away from everything and everyone and just like do your thing. So don't come and camp beside me unless you know me. Like, just sort of camp over there and then we'll yarn. And I mean, I'm happy just to meet halfway and have a beer and light a fire there or whatever. But do your thing. Another one you touched on, mate, is just like packing your rubbish up and that. I mean, everywhere you go nowadays, you're going to see, poo tickets and shit. But yeah, I mean, I don't know how you get away from that. It just seems to be a normal thing. You've got your grubs and you've got your genuine good people that go camping. Unfortunately, there's some grubs out there that don't care. But definitely, if you can take stuff out with you, obviously it's not our responsibility to take everyone's rubbish out for them all the time. But if you can fit it, so I look at it like this: if we're going home, so if we're doing a weekend or whatever, and there's rubbish there, poo tickets, it's easy just to go over there and light them, burn them off, happy days, done. Rubbish and that. Generally speaking, mate, if we're doing a weekender, we will load that rubbish into a pile, and then as we're leaving, we chuck it all in with our rubbish and we go. If we're on a track, say for example, the old tally track, where you're going to be in there for like a couple of days or anything, if you're on an off-grid, because we go pretty remote for a lot of the time. If we're away and we're not going to see a rubbish bin for 5 days, we can't be in a position where we take everyone's rubbish with us and we're basically a tip truck when we drive out of there in 5 days' time. Like, there's got to be a cut-off. So it's, again, we try and focus probably, if we can burn stuff, we'll go and pick it up, put it in a fire and burn it off. If it's stuff that's just not going to break down, take as much as we can within reason. And then if everyone's doing that, I mean, clearly it'd be nice if people just took it in the first place. But we try and take it, as much as we can without having to, like I said, carry 2 ton of someone else's rubbish. So that's my take on the rubbish side of things. One of the other things, mate, when you talk about the music and that, I don't know. I reckon if you're in a built-up area and there's people everywhere, I'm sort of half on that. I don't want to sound like an old fuddy-duddy and old sook, but I just think you've got to go around that 10, 11 o'clock-y sort of thing, just like what you do at your house. If you're working or even if you're having the weekend off or whatever and you've got 2 o'clock in the morning, you've still got the bloke next door or the bloke 2 doors down and all you can hear is just boom, boom, boom. All you hear in bass all night. Sometimes that gets old, mate. You know what I mean? We've all partied before and we've all done it, so sometimes, you got to do it. But I think when you go out bush, I don't know. I'm going to get shot down. There'll be youngsters, if youngsters do listen to this channel or this potty, they'll shoot me down and say, mate, it's open slab, they're out there. And I think it is within reason. But, pick your audience, I guess, and show some respect with that.
So if I,
Go on, mate.
I'll give you a question off the back of that. What about volume?
Yeah.
So, is it acceptable at a decent hour to be full rip blasting, whether it's music you like? You know, obviously, from what I know about you, you like country. What if it's like a rap song and it's full rip? What's your take on that? Is it acceptable to be
up
full rip?
Until 10 o'clock?
Yeah, or what? You know, even if it's like 7 o'clock or 6 o'clock, is that a decent hour? But it's full rip and you can hear it clear as day. Is that acceptable?
Me, if I'm to answer for me, no, not really. Nor is the absolute shit out of me, to be honest with you. But on the same token, yeah, I don't know. Like, I think it's a mood thing. Like, I don't know. Like, I think if you're a genuinely good person and you're camping in a build-up area, you don't be a flog like that where you're trying to drown each other out or you're trying to just be the loudest. You're trying to run a disco there in the middle of the bush. I don't know. I don't want to do the young old thing or whatever. Like, but 9 times out of 10, it'll be young blokes doing it. But on the same token, when we camped at Steep Point recently, those old salty dogs I was talking about, mate, they had the music cranking. And I actually think they were personally trying to piss the campers off beside them. That's my opinion. But at the end of the day, I'm not sure what was going on. But that was coming up. We were camped, 200 or 300 metres away, mate, and that was just pumping all night. And I think, I don't know, it went to like 2 or 3 in the morning, and there was a part of me that was just like, oh, no, just deal with it, have another vodka, go to sleep, whatever. And there was a part of me that I won't lie to you, mate, I laid down and I thought, fucking first thing in the morning, mate, even if there's no wood down there, I'm running my chainsaw. As soon as I get up at 5 in the morning, I'm going down there with my chainsaw. I'll cut rocks up if I have to, just to give you a bit of an idea of how noisy you were last night. But then, I don't know, that's just how you have those moments. And then it was just like, oh, whatever, And then I fell asleep and life goes on, no big deal. But look, I will say the other thing I want to touch on, and I'd love people's opinions on this because I think this is, again, people have different takes on this and people have different ways of dealing with this. So, fires. Putting fires out when you leave a camp and the whole concept of burying fires. Now, I'm not a mad fan of burying fires. Like, I'm a fan of, mate, I still don't understand. We've been to places, and I'm sure you have, and I'm sure plenty of people out there that are listening to this have. You'll come to a campsite and there's still a smouldering fire and it's right beside a body of water. Why that fire's not out is beyond me. That makes no sense to me. Mate, there's always a way. You'll have a pot or a pan or a bucket. Use your shoe. I don't care what you use. Use a plastic bag. If you, I don't know. Don't use a plastic bag. You probably knock your hands off because you're that silly. But you know what I'm saying. Like there's a way of putting a fire out. And I don't mean like there's a little bit of smoke where you've given up too early or whatever, but flames, like the fact that there's flames still, just it's beyond me. I don't know. I've sometimes wondered, have people just like left their fire gone and and they're just in a vehicle, say, and for example, a rooftop tent, and they've pissed off for the day to do a day trip, and then hoping they're going to come back and their fire's still running. Well, I've probably put out a couple of fires on those people in my time because if I get there and there's a fire running and no one's there, I put it out. Unless I'm going to use it. If I went there and it was perfect lunchtime, it's like, oh, shit, fire's running, happy days. Cook me lunch on it, say, for example. It's never really happened like that, to be honest with you. But, yeah, I put them out, mate. And the reason I say about burying fires, because I know some people do bury fires. Like, say you're on a beach and you have a fire and you bury it with sand. I remember many years ago, mate, I don't know what it was, like on a forum or something, and there was a family that was travelling up in Lakeland National Park up in Cape York there, and someone had buried a fire. Obviously, I don't know whether they tried to put it out or whatever, and they buried a fire, and a young girl stood on that fire and, burnt her leg right up to her knee and was, flown out of there, like third-degree burns in a really serious way.
Yeah.
That, man, it mortified me, and we had young girls at the time too. Our daughters were young at the time, and it absolutely mortified me. I just thought I couldn't even imagine being on the trip of a lifetime, and you're a week in, a day in, a month in, doesn't matter the stuff on the timeline, but to see my little girl in that situation, like horrendous, mate. I'd rather see the fire pit there, and then this might sound like a harsh thing to say, but if your child or yourself walk in that fire pit and it's still hot because someone hasn't put it out properly and you burn yourself, well, the warning signs were there. So you can't do too much about the warning signs. Do you know what I mean? But if there's no warning signs and someone burns themselves, like, yeah, frightening. I don't like the concept. Again, I did hear another story many years ago about someone, like back in the day, you'd light a fire, you'd grab your baked bean cans and spaghetti cans and you bury them in the fire to warm them up and you drag them out. I heard a story that someone had obviously done that the night before, must have got on the piss or whatever and just forgotten about one and couldn't find it or whatever. And it just so happens it exploded. It didn't hurt anyone, but it exploded just as when these other people, they were setting up their camp or whatever, so another group had come in the day after and setting up camp, and all of a sudden there was this fucking almighty bang, and it was a can of baked beans that exploded in the fire. It had been in the, and I don't know why it had got to that point where it exploded. Luckily, it didn't hurt anyone, but just that concept, I don't know. If you can put a fire out, put a fire out. I'd love to know your opinion. I'd love to know the people out there what their opinion is on fires, because it's a big thing, man. They can be actually really dangerous. What's your spin on that?
It's a bit. We're actually just talking before. I reckon it's such. It's going to be a really good dynamic with having us both in different locations, because we've got totally different options, different areas. So obviously down south, there's big restrictions on fires. Like you can't just light a fire anywhere, or like the outback, camping spots have to have fire pits generally. There's still certain spots you can go and just have a fire, and we've had big troubles down south. Obviously, when a fire gets away, because it's such a built-up area, there's lives at risk straight away. There's people's houses. There's only, it's still a decent body of bush or whatever, but not far away. There's a farm or a house or a town or something. So that concept I've seen it many times where down here it's been caused by campers, which obviously isn't a good look for campers and another excuse to shut trucks or stop fires totally.
Yeah.
But
100%.
Same thing. I've come down and there's been fires going. Generally in the fire pits, they're not too bad because obviously they're a big concrete. I don't think I've ever come across one really burning properly, like flames. I've come across a lot.
Yeah, right.
Still smoking.
Yep.
Yeah, and obviously the fire pits generally, as long as it's not a stupid big fire, even if it was going, I don't know, maybe the wind could still take it or something like that. But I have come across a lot that probably aren't far away from igniting again, or possibility, which is, probably how some of these fires are started, with, obviously wind and it gets air or whatever and takes so long, gets hot enough, it will ignite again. But yeah, like you say, a lot of spots there's down south, a lot of there's rivers or you've got the ocean there or something. There's no excuse to, even if you've only got an old water bottle, putting the, going down there, filling your water bottle up and tipping it on there. And, I've tried to do most of the time. Generally, we carry a large amount of water with us, or, and try and do a little bit of that. Or even, I don't think I've we have done. I actually haven't heard those stories before with burying fires, because we've done little bits. Generally, I guess we've left it exposed, sort of like we'll flick a little bit of sand or something on it. Or the fire was that small, like it was only a tiny fire. Certain areas down here just don't have the wood source, so it's only very, very small. So it was probably no risk to anyone getting burnt either. Hearing that is actually a great thing to think about. I've never even thought about that before, with people standing on it and all that sort of stuff. It's obviously, especially if you get, certain areas, you get some good wood, you can get a big hearty fire going.
Cool. 100%.
And
look, mate.
Yeah, go on.
Go on, mate. No, what I was going to say, mate, is like, I think too, Not to keep going on too much about fires, but, and again, I'm not an expert on everything. It's just we've been doing this for a long time, going away camping and stuff. And I know, say for example, if you're not around a body of water, you've only carried limited water on you, in your vehicle or whatever. What we do, and I'm not saying this is how everyone should do it. I'm just saying this is what we do. So don't take this as a tutorial on how to light fires and stuff. Like, this is just my opinion. But say, for example, we did, people would know that we did a double Simpson crossing a couple of years ago. And one night in particular, we camped on the bins track. Now, there was only a small group of us, myself, my wife, a couple of our best mates and my old man. And we knew that we had another few days. We didn't know whether we were going to come across water. We didn't have a mad supply of water because we'd only just come out of the Simpson Desert, went to Mount Dare, and they didn't have like a mad source of water. And then we headed back into the bins track. So generally speaking, if we're near a body of water and you're going to have a good fire and you're going to be there for a couple of days, we dig a fire pit with it. If we're not carrying a fire pit, we dig a fire pit. So then you can have a good fire, so you can put your camp oven in that. If you have a big body of coals, they don't go out for a long time, mate. So say, for example, when we went to the bins track, we knew that we were only doing an overnighter. We didn't have a real lot of water, so we didn't dig a hole. We just had a top-of-the-ground fire and just kept it small, essentially for a bit of ambience, to be honest with you. Because it was quite cold at the time. So it was just so what we did the next day is we let it burn out overnight, and then we tipped some water on it, just a limited amount of water to basically put that flame out. And what we did is just spread those coals out onto the ground into a bit of a thing, so they weren't generating a ball of heat. It was just sort of spread out. Was that the right thing to do? We thought it was. We thought that was the best way to combat what we've done. But that's just, again, just my opinion, just what we do. Maybe a suggestion. It might work for other people. Other people, again, leave it in the comments and let us know if that's the right thing to do. It was silly or a waste of time or a great idea, whatever you want to do. But, yeah, no.
I'd love to
fires can be dangerous, mate.
Oh, yeah, I'd love to hear everyone's thought. Give us a message or whatever about the whole sort of thing, music, times, how you should leave your camp, pissing people off. Should you camp right near people? Should you go away? Because I know some people, like you go to some caravan parks, your caravan or your camp trailers are just about touching, so maybe they're just used to that, and then when they go out to the beach, it's what you do. But yeah, let us know. Yeah. Give us a message, give us some feedback. But if there's any more on that, or if you want to go on the next question.
Just to a bit of a shout out to Evan, mate. If we've missed something that you wanted to talk about, let us know and give us some feedback on that. If we've covered your question properly, I think that's what you were talking about, just that broad range of stuff. So, mate, great, a big shout out to Evan. Thanks, host, for sending that in, man. You're a legend. Righto. Next one, brothers. The next one was from Brent from Exploring Off Grid. They're a Victorian couple, him and his misso. Another great couple. We sort of have some good yarns with these guys too, and we've got a lot of respect for them. I love their high country stuff. And his question, which I think I'm sort of reasonably versed on this, and you to a certain extent you will be too, mate, but he said new versus old. Now, obviously, mate, we've got a dinosaur 25-year-old 105 series, which we absolutely love and have mad passion for. And obviously, we've just gone out and bought a brand new 79 series. So we've got two four drives sitting in our driveway that classed as old and new. So for me, I'm going to go straight off the bat and answer this, and then you can have your spiel on it. For me, new versus old, and what's my opinion, or what's my take on it? If I had my way forever, I'll have old and new, because I think they both have a place. So I'll start off on the old. The reason we love old, and these guys run a GU with a canopy that, Brent's just knocked up this mad canopy, and mate, he's handy. He's a handy bloke on the tools and that. So check out Exploring Off Grid on Insta. Absolute legends. But for me, an old vehicle is just simple. They work. Everyone knows how to work on them. Everyone knows where to get parts from them. You can go anywhere in Australia and you can get parts for them, like your GQ, GU, 80, 105s, your 75s, your 79s to a certain extent, like your older ones, whatever. Mate, there's parts all over Australia, like, and probably plenty of other Hiluxes and stuff like that. And like they're just simple, mate. There's bugger all electronics, so there's bugger all to go wrong with them. You know, you could be just your average punter and still work your way around it, you know, and troubleshoot it or whatever. New cars are out of everyone's league when it comes to troubleshooting, unless you're, you know, if you're a mechanic and you've got a scan gauge or something there. But I just love my old vehicles. I love the way they look. I love the way they're just rugged. I don't think you have to care about them as much. Obviously, you know, we don't want to be damaging our 105, but if we go into the bush, mate, look, if you have a look up close, there's some pretty good war wounds in there, and we've used it as a four-wheel drive its whole life. So, you know, there's dents everywhere. There's the doors make a lot of noise when they open, and it's, you know, it's a 25-year-old rig to drive. Like, it feels like it, mate. You feel like you're driving an old Acco or something, you know, like it's. You know, and I know you can make them feel nice and all the rest of it, but it's worked hard all its life, and it's certainly not like a new car. But I love it, and just the concept of doing even mods to them. Like, you sort of don't care if you drill a hole in them, or if you have a bit of a play or whatever, or, you know, a little bit of touch up paint. You sort of don't. There's not as much fear of it. I think you get in there and you have a crack at it with an old vehicle. And, mate, for as long as I can have my old vehicle, we will have it. And, you know, all this talk of electric vehicles and, you know, DPFs and pollution and all this sort of stuff, you know, you walk behind it was a perfect example yesterday when we went and did a day trip yesterday, and, we had the trailer with the quad bike on it behind the 105, towed it out to a spot, left that on the side of the road, Fee jumped on the quad bike, and then I drove the 79, did our day trip, went fishing in it, and then came back. But when you start the 79, like, there's almost no smell to it. You know, it's a brand new car, it's DPF, so it cuts all that sort of shit out, my understanding. You go behind the 105 and it's like, fuck. Like, you wouldn't stand behind it for 2 minutes, otherwise you'd pass out. Like, and it's not smoky per se. Like, it's running good and all, but I hope that's how they're meant to smell. Like, old vehicles, they just smell like that. Like, you know, it's straight through exhaust. That's what they smell like. So, like, I love the old dinosaurs. But then for new, mate, to jump in that 79, and I know, like, we had this premonition, and like everyone talking about farm trucks and that. They're a glorified farm truck. The most expensive vehicle in world's history. Like, you get better value for money out of a Bentley or a Ferrari than you do a 79 series. Like, let's face it, it's ridiculous, and we all know it. But I mean, it's just one of those love-hate vehicles. You know, like, no one loves spending the money on them because they're ridiculously overpriced. But I think when you have one, you either love it or you hate it. There's no in between. It's not like, it's not a bad rig or whatever. You either just think, mate, so overpriced and so overrated, heap of shit, get rid of it, or you just become a part of that 79 cult where you just love your rig, you know. And we've had ours since Christmas, and we're already a part of the cult. Absolutely love it. You hop in it, you know. We just drove up to the Kimberley to see Ronnie and Coralie and the Morgan family, mate, and I think we sat in that car. Yeah, I think the first day we did 12, just under 1,300 Ks. And I felt brand new, and I just wanted to keep driving. I was loving it. It drives nice, it's comfortable, it goes well, everything just works. It's brand new, so of course it's going to. But everything we threw at it over the trip, river crossings, long distance, you know, road driving, gravel, four-wheel drive, it didn't miss a beat. It was brilliant. Love it. And the concept for us, mate, is the two big reasons, just sort of a bit of a reason to why we bought the new one and why we rate new vehicles over old. We can't legally get that same GVM on that 105 as we can on the 79. So that's the main reason. Legalities is the main reason we went to 79. Otherwise, I don't know whether we even would have bought a 79 potentially. But just a new vehicle, mate. Like, we're in our 50s now, and coming home every trip with that old vehicle, it comes home with a new clunk or a new noise or a new rattle, or every time you come home. And I'm constantly laying under the thing on the driveway, and so I don't have a shed and a hoist and all that. We've got nothing. I do everything. I did an FTE conversion in it under a carport in the Pilbara summer. It was like 53 degrees Christmas Day, and I was out there working on my car, frying my brain. So, at the end of the day, new, there's a place for new, mate. 100% there's a place for new. I think if you're young and you love playing on cars and all the rest of it, and affordability, clearly my 105, you can go and buy a 105 now, even with an FTA in it, like they're overpriced, ridiculously overpriced with an FTA. It suits me, because if I ever wanted to sell it, you'd still get good money for it. But they're an affordable vehicle for your average person. Youngsters and older people alike. A 79, and even some of these your Rangers and all. I don't really look into the Rangers and the Hiluxes and that, but my understanding, mate, some of these Hiluxes straight off the shelf, they're like 75 grand. It's like, holy shit. They haven't changed a lot for the last 10 years. Same as the set. Like, I'm not even going to go into pricing 79s. Everyone knows what they're like. I've just mentioned it. But, the whole concept of a brand new car, like with your warranties and the feel of it and the advancement in technology and that sort of stuff. Mate, if you're, in my opinion, you can afford a newer car, 100% you buy a new car. Like, if we could all afford brand new stuff every day, we'd just buy brand new stuff. That's the reality. But 9 times out of 10, the reason people have, I shouldn't say that, because people just love old stuff. I'd say at least 50-50. Some people, even if they're millionaires, mate, still buy old stuff. And that's a factor. When we know that, people just love old stuff. People that collect old cars or old tractors, old four drives or whatever. But I think if you've got the money, let me put it this way: if you can afford to have both, I don't know whether we can. We're just having a crack because we're silly. But 100% have both. If you can have the best of both worlds, I would say keep your old, and then if you could have a new one, have a new one. That's sort of probably my take on it. News meant, man, like having a new car is amazing, but that 105, if I have my way, won't be going anywhere. I absolutely love my old vehicle. What's your spin, Buzz? Tell me what you reckon.
Well, I'm sort of on the fence in some ways. So I've got still sitting in the shed broken for a long time. But I got a 1982 Hilux, which is probably the opposite end. Like, it's really old. It's hard to get parts for. It's it's quite. But they're so bloody simple. There's no computers in them. They're just a cable through your throttle. We've had it many times. I've had stuff go wrong with it, your clutch and bits and pieces and starter motor, and every time you can get it going. Like, there's no sensors, there's no this and that. I've been in situations with newer cars where you got all these different sensors and you're trying to clean them and you don't have the right thing to clean them properly because you wreck the sensor and then you're properly stuffed. So in that aspect, the older cars win every time. If you break down, you can generally get them going, And, certain things with the newer cars you can, but I've heard a lot of the times where, you get water into something or, generally an older car, if you get water in something, I've seen some crazy stuff where they can, if you get water in your motor or something, you can get home. But a lot of these new cars, that's it, the gearbox, this is not talking to this anymore and the gearbox isn't working. So that aspect, it wins every day. Obviously they're not, like as in my Hilux, it's not comfortable. Like it's at the other end where it's really rough. We've also got a 105 and, I've got a 108Z, not going anywhere fast, but that's got... I don't think we'd be too far off 600,000 Ks on it now, and got no signs of slowing down. I've also got an N70 Hilux, and it's got about 300,000 on it now, and falling to bits. Like, it's tired, it needs... I spend some big money on it now, so I'm actually going to sell it. So they don't last like they used to, but also I want to bring up, like, I've worked with a bloke and also got a mate that's bought the new Ford Raptors, and the technology in them is mind-blowing. Like, holy shit. You look at, I've climbed under the suspension's got wires coming out of suspension, and each mode, you got your different power modes and stuff, and each power mode changes your suspension. And I've talked to a bloke, he's like, mate, you can sit on the beach like a highway. It feels like you're on a bitumen road and you're going over all this rough stuff.
Yeah.
And I've talked to my mate, he's like, bro, I've been sitting in my car for like an hour going through the tablet in there, and it's just got that much shit in there, and it's like you just get stuck in the different settings and all that, which is cool. Like, it's awesome. But my question is, in 10, 20 years, what's that car going to be like? And some of the options. I'm not, and I'm only. I don't know that much about them. I don't know what how much you can customize your car. Obviously, I've talked to different of these new cars. I know the Y62. There was something about you got hydraulic suspension in the front, so standard you can only put so much weight on the front. You can't put a big bull bar and bits and pieces. So it does. Right. In one side, it brings so much, comfort and technology, and it's sick. But on the other side, your customization side, and also, especially if you don't know how to use the things, like I had an old boss that was down the beach, and he tried to get up, I think it was Warren Hill or something, down there, which is quite a steep hill, and couldn't get up.
Yeah.
And it wasn't because of the car couldn't, it was because he couldn't figure out how to turn the settings off of, traction control, and you had to put it in this certain mode. And the big thing I find is, like all these old cars, 75s, some of them have got some crazy Ks on them, or, they're all getting really old now. But, all these newer cars, what are they going to be like in 20 years or 30 years,
100%.
I feel like they're just going to be in the scrap heap because you can't, or you're going to have to spend 20 grand on them redoing the electrics and sensors and all this sort of stuff, because you can't, you probably can't do it yourself unless you're an auto sparky. But the other side is, they're not mechanical, and they're all wires get old, sensors get old. So that is my big worry, I suppose, with the newer cars. But comfort side, I think they're crazy.
I think, mate, because we essentially live in a throwaway society, it's everything's a consumable. Like, it just, we use it for 5 minutes and we throw it away. And I think that's probably what Brent's alluding to, that the fact that, mate, in another 25 years, his GU will be still going strong. Like, the concept of, like, your 105, mate, 600,000 and just doing its thing, like, mate, it speaks volumes of old versus new, like, right there. Do you know what I mean? And you just touched on a thing of, like, old and new. You jump in my 105 or an old, 40 series, an old Hilux or whatever, you pretty much got your high-low stick, and you just bang it. Like, obviously ours is high-low just because it's all-wheel drive, full-time four-wheel drive, pain in the ass to a certain extent. But, it's you lock your hubs, you pull your lever, and away you go. Do you know what I mean? And they just do their thing. Mate, in one of our recent videos, we did this hill in the 79. I'm still learning how to use it. I've never had a car with traction control, and I don't know any of that. And I just flick the traction. We drive work utes and all the rest of it, but, I don't need to play around with any of that stuff in a work ute. I've just got to get me out to the job, I flicked the traction control light, the button, thinking, well, that's it. Traction control's off. And I did this hill, and I've had people even sort of send me messages saying, mate, check your turbo boost and see if, like, it's not missing something or whatever. Like, because the 79 got to the top of that hill. Like, it took me like 10 goes, but it got to the top of the hill, and I had the thing buried through the firewall, and it just wouldn't go anywhere. And I was just like, that's a brand new V8. Like, this thing should be just smoking this hill, and I just couldn't work out what it was doing. And then sort of got up over the top of the hill. Nearly stalled. Like, I was about a second away from banging the clutch in and trying to take off again. It was that gutless. Then a few people had reached out through the channel and stuff, saying, mate, and guys that have got 79 and saying, with that traction control button in high range, because I was low range, I couldn't even get the thing to move. Like, I don't know, just couldn't get it up the hill. I don't know what was going on. In high range, you can flick the button, and that takes it off, my understanding, until, and I'm not an expert on this, mate, I haven't even researched it because I'm not a real manual person. I just learn by just touching and feeling and experience. That's how I've always done it, you know what I mean? Or people telling me, and then I try it. I believe if you hit the traction control button in a 79 series, I think at 30 kilometres or 40 kilometres an hour, it actually then just resets itself. So your traction control's back on. I didn't know that. I don't think I was doing 30 or 40 up that hill. Maybe I fucking was, but I've now been told that to take your traction control off and lock it out, you've got to hold that button in for I think it's 5 to 10 seconds.
Yeah, 10 seconds.
Yeah. So yesterday when we were out bushing, we did that day trip. There's a little bit of a hill to climb out, and I actually did that. I held it in, and you see it just like lights everywhere on the screen. And I drove up this little sandy hill and laid the boot in it, and I could hear that it was roaring. It was just it was just throwing roosters out and roaring up the hill. And I thought, fuck, had I known that when we were on dirt carts, I would have been sick. Or steep point. I didn't know that. So, and for me, a bloke who doesn't buy a brand new car or a brand new set of headphones or anything I buy, the manual stays in the box. It's all about, I know there's an on button, I'll try that. Yeah, and then as stuff goes wrong, then I might do some more research or whatever. But I'm more likely to ring you and say, instead of grabbing the manual that's right beside me and reading it, I'm more likely to say, hey man, how do I work these headphones? And you're not even here, you can't even see them, but you'll talk me through it, and that's how I learn. So, new versus old, I can 100% see the negatives in new because there's so much going on and all those sensors you're talking about. Will they stand the test of time, or will they just be nothing but do a big water crossing and all of a sudden you've just got lights everywhere? Whereas the old rigs, you don't have those issues. So, mate, I think Brent's probably more likely to be on the side of old vehicles. And so am I, mate. I love me 105, and I know you do, and love your old Luxies and stuff. So, yeah, I'd love to get people's feedback on that. And mate, just quickly, I do remember. I don't know whether you remember this. This is many years ago. Full drive action back in the day. Tim Bates did a trip with Ruthie and Glenn Haddon and a couple other lads. There was another fellow with a GQ, can't remember his name. But they did a trip up there somewhere in the high country, would have been with Tim Bates running it. And it was pissing rain, big bog holes. Ruthie was in Milo. Glenn Haddon was in his new 200 series, and they were pretty new to the scene then, and he's pretty switched on. But anyway, they've gone through this water hole, and there was lights come on the dash on the 200 series, and I remember Ruthie standing beside Glenn saying, "Well, what's the go, mate? What do you do?" And he goes, and because he's obviously one of those people that does read manuals, he's a mechanic and that. He's like, "Well, so you've got to, I don't know, well, something silly, mate. Don't quote me on this, but something like, you've got to turn the heater on, you've got to hold the speedo in, you've got to press all these buttons. It's like a routine, like a process, and you've got to do this and then pump the bait 5 times." And I remember Ruthie, I don't remember exactly what he said. It's like, "Oh, so what's the next thing? You got to walk around the car backwards with your finger in your mouth or your thumb in your mouth or whatever, and do it like something was just." And then because I think that video was essentially about old versus new, because they had old Milo and they had the brand new 200 series, and that there, I remember saying to myself, I think I said to the misso, "Fuck, ever buying a new car? Where's sticking?" I think back then we had the old Hilux, and it's like, "Old mate, you'll give me old any day of the week. That new technology just doesn't, no way." And 20 years later, here we are. I've just bought a brand new car full of technology, but pretty basic technology compared to the rough you're just talking about. We don't have any of that sort of stuff going on. So, mate, I think old versus new, if you have your way, in my opinion, have them both. I think they've both got their place. I think that's all I can say on that. I hope that's answered your question properly, Brent. What do you reckon, mate? Have you got anything else to add? What do you reckon we covered, or what?
I think we're pretty much on it. Yeah, my vote would be old. Shortly want to buy a new car, but nothing new. Obviously I'd love a 79, but I think the 79 with it being not that developed. I mean, obviously the new one's out, but everyone complains about the 79 not being developed. I think that's actually a good thing. Like,
so right.
Mostly mechanical. Obviously there's bits and pieces, but it's in that still sort of old era. But my vote would be with old. But we're at 50 minutes. I don't know if we get another question in. I don't know if you have anything you want to bring up, but I actually had something to bring up off of episode 1. If you
so 100%, brother, 100%.
We talked about mapping apps.
Just quickly, Buzz. Sorry, mate. I just want to say thanks, Brent. Thanks for that question, mate. Absolute legend.
Thank you.
Anyone that, like I said before, jump on their Instas, Old Luxy and Exploring Off Grid. Jump on there and give them a follow, give them a like, do all that sort of stuff.
Thank you.
2 absolute legends. Thank you for your questions. Sorry, mate. Sorry to cut you off.
No, that's good.
Rip into it, Russ.
I'm too excited. We're talking about mapping apps, and I've sort of been thinking about it since we recorded that. I listen to the Joe Rogan podcast sometimes while I'm at work, and anyone that listens to Joe Rogan knows that some of the stuff they bring up can be wild and wacky and all this. And I think this one I was listening to was about past civilizations or something and all this sort of shit. And some I just find interesting. I take it all with a grain of salt, but they were talking about, people possibly have used to be able to know direction and whatever and all this sort of stuff, and it's been a lost thing over time. And then they started talking about even these days we are so reliant on technology now. When I was younger, it was that era where you had the maps, and you had to find out, all right, go to this page, figure it out. I had to write it down or memorize it, and you just learnt to know where you were going. Where these days, and I was thinking about it, I don't know where I'm going half the time. Obviously I go down certain bush tracks, I remember how to get there, but navigating around, you're just relying on Google or your mapping app. So are we losing our ability to even just navigate around basically? Like compasses and stuff are becoming a thing, you don't even really hear that phrase anymore, compass or anything like that. Like it's becoming so reliant. Unless your app's working, you don't know where the hell you are, and you're probably too focused on your phone about where you're going to actually look around and get the basics of where's the sun and what direction we're heading. Do you think that's becoming a problem?
Potentially for some people. If I'm to speak for myself and for how we travel, like I said the other day, mate, in that one, we have memory maps on our iPad with a HEMA overlay, and that's essentially what we run. Even when Fee was on the quad bike yesterday, we were going out to this spot. We'd been out there ages ago, but we didn't map it last time, and we had a bit of a... So Fee just had her phone, which has got the exact same... it's the smaller version of the iPad, clearly, so that same mapping is on the iPhone, and she just had that on her quad bike and did the mapping on the way out there then. If we're just doing stuff locally like that, we wouldn't care about sort of paper maps or whatever. But when we went into the desert, so for example, we've got all that stuff all loaded into our iPad and all that mapping, but we have the 4 desert paper maps, and on top, I don't know, it's just us, that's the way we roll, and the hard copied bloody binder book, the big, Melrose looking thing. We've got that. Exactly all that is another version of the paper maps, except the paper maps are 4 separate maps. The book is the whole book, and it gives you heaps more information on, like just little tips and tricks or just other different stuff. And then we've got our mapping. So we still are 100% believe in paper mapping. And I think if you're just going around, if you're going down to your local beach like at Munginup or one of the ups, like I don't know how to say half of them ups down there in the southwest, but if you're going to one of the ups, you probably don't need paper mapping because you can probably find your way through there, and you could just pinpoint. If you're mapping shit itself, I don't think you're as such going to get lost. When you're heading out remote, if you don't have a paper map, I think you're fraught with danger, to be honest with you. And so I think... I don't know whether that's an older generation and a younger generation thing. I'm certainly not going to I'm going to pick me battles, mate. I'm not going to start hanging shit on the young fellas as an old fella. But the reality is, I think if you're going to an area and don't have paper maps for that area, I think you're going there a little bit underprepared, just quietly.
Well,
that's my opinion.
Could be a simple thing as, you drop as you're away, if you got one phone by yourself or something, you drop your phone in the water and it buggers out, or you smash it. What do you do? And I don't think I do anymore. I used to have a paper book of all the maps. It was like the Southwest, and always used to have that in the back seat cover. I think it might have been wet or something. I need to get another one. But generally down south, it's either signed or something. But there is a lot of spots. I like to go explore, sort of off the main track, and some of the spots it's quite simple. And even though some of the tricks, like we've had a few tricks that we do, like if you're going around without a lot of time, you don't have reception, you can't load maps, and we haven't planned it. It's just an off the cusp trip, and simple things like we turn the corner, I'll actually try and do a little broggy around the corner, or like a little clutch dump, just to leave a mark there, so you know where you turn or what direction you come from. Even little simple things like that, and you hear of people putting little and even a simple thing like that, like some of the times I haven't even needed to, I knew exactly where I'm going, but there's other times I've come out and I'm like, shit, which way did I actually turn? I can see my little body mark there, and it's not as extreme as, hanging stuff in trees or something, but a little trick like that can get you out of the shit pretty quick, And like you say, up north, it's not like down the south here, you've got a pretty good chance of, some areas of coming across someone, or I've done it plenty of times where, you come along and thought you're going, too busy yarning, you're like, shit, where are we? Like, it's obviously it's a total different thing. You could end up hundreds of kilometres in the wrong direction, and that's when it becomes, don't have enough fuel, don't have enough water, don't have enough food, you get bogged somewhere.
Absolutely.
Then and how to navigate.
And look, technology is amazing when it comes to all this stuff, mate. But again, when you just said about hanging stuff in trees, so what we do too, and it's just something I don't know where we stumbled upon this, but you see it all the time. So where surveyors, they hang that like your pink ribbon. It's just like a cloth ribbon or whatever. It's like a tape. It's not sticky tape. Yeah, they just tie it off on stuff. We carry that. So with our quad bikes, a couple of missions we've done with our quad bikes. We've got a roll of it in the car as well. But when we've gone out on the quad bikes, where you're essentially making your own track. That's the reason we bought the quad bike, so we could get to somewhere where there's maps and tracking and all the rest of it. And then just to get a little bit deeper into the bush, to get to a fishing hole or whatever, we just ride through the bush on the quad bike. And what we do, mate, is leave ribbon everywhere. And then as we're coming back, generally speaking, mate, you can see your tracks anyway. But just in case, if it gets to a point where, because it's easy to get lost, especially if you're coming back in the dark or if anything happened, it just gives us a bit of a point of, like if our mapping does shoot itself, like you say, drop your phone or whatever, we just tie ribbon in the tree, this pink ribbon, it stands out like bloody dog's balls. And then on the way back, we just rip off the ribbon and we just, go from ribbon to ribbon. Haven't had to do a lot of that, but we have. But we carry a box on the front of one of the quads, and that's it's got a pump and tyre repair kit and first aid kit, and that ribbon is a part of that box. It's like our safety box, and it's got everything in there to keep us, a two-way, an EPIRB, all that sort of stuff. And that's mate. I think it's paramount, especially if you're making your own tracks, and it's just simple old school stuff. I know of back in the day, like all young fellas, and we're going away in the ute or whatever, and not necessarily me controlling this, but blokes just putting a bloody beer can, shoving it on a stick. You know what I mean? And you get to the beer can, you turn right or you turn left or whatever. Yeah, so look, technology can 1,000,000% let you down. We all know it. Heading out bush or anything you do, like I think having that second backup, bit of a plan B with some good old fashioned paper maps or some bit of ribbon to tie in a tree or a Luxy burnout on a corner or whatever, like whatever saves you bacon, mate, whatever keeps you safe. Definitely have a plan B though. Definitely have a plan B. 100%.
Yeah, no, it just got me thinking about it. But yeah, I'd love to hear everyone else's tricks again. We keep saying it because we want every subject we talk about. Love to hear your feedback.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm sure there's little tricks and stuff that we don't know about, and even better. You know, and I'm not saying it's not an excuse to go on skids. Like, you know, not generally with a mild Hilux, it can't do a skid, so we're lucky. You know, you got to be proud of it. Yeah, but we're up to an hour. Is there anything else you wanted to touch on, or before we wrap it up?
Nah, I think, mate. I think and we will explain, legends out there. We made a bit of an agreement with ourselves that we were going to try and keep these potties to an hour. We think that's a decent amount of time to sit down, whether it be a drive to work, you know, sitting around a fire, or just if you wanted to do a visual thing, you knock off work and, you know, you want to watch a potty or whatever. If we want that feedback too. If you think an hour is too long and you'd prefer just a quick half an hour potty, we can do that. We can adapt to that, mate.
Good luck with us.
We'll be lucky to finish our intro in half an hour, guys. But anyway, or if you want longer ones, you know, we could. I just think an hour is a good amount of time. Yeah, we can do 4-hour ones if you want. It's like when Jaden and I start talking. Yeah, it's almost like we only ever really stop when our throats get dry or you know, dinner's ready. Or we sat there and we did a bloody practice potty the other night, mucking around, and we were sitting there eating our dinner while we're doing that, weren't we, brother? So yeah. But again, just that feedback. Yeah, I think we'll cut it off an hour. Again, just a shout out to the guys that have sent these questions in. So there is obviously a few questions that were sent in on the Insta page the other day that we haven't read today. But again, it'll take us a long time to get through them all. So don't think it's not going to get read out. If it takes us however long to get them out, if you've sent something in, you will be called out. We will answer your question. And just thank you so much for everyone jumping on this episode. Hope you've enjoyed it. You enjoyed it, mate?
Oh, yeah, it's good. It's always good yarning.
Like
I said the other night, we were doing a practice potty and it was like 10 o'clock. We were on there for like 4 or 5 hours.
Yeah.
But even should have been recorded then.
But, we should have.
Yeah, we love everyone's feedback. It's honestly, I was almost getting emotional about it the other day. I was like, God, like we've just thought we'd give it a crack, and you know, I thought it'd be good having a potty with us too, and then just the feedback. We hadn't even released one, like, for goodness sakes, like it's honestly,
awesome.
Not thank everyone enough, everyone. So the Yarnsman podcast, the Off-Road Yarnsman, should get the name right. The Off-Road Yarnsman podcast on Instagram.
We're working on
it. Hit us up, feedback, share it, whatever you feel like doing. Any beer sponsors, you know, we are strongly chasing a beer sponsor. You know, it's going to end up costing us quite a bit, this podcast. Any alcohol will take. But yeah, thanks a lot, and we'll see you on episode 3.
Cheers, legends.